Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the first session of the afternoon programme of the Astana International Forum. I'm Tony Barber, and I'm very pleased to say that with me, to my left, is a distinguished figure in European politics, Sebastian Kurz, former Chancellor of Austria. Welcome, Sebastian.
Thank you very much for the invitation. Pleasure to be here.
Now, given your background in European politics and the fact that we are here in Kazakhstan, let me open our conversation by referring to the recent European Union Central Asia summit in Samarkand quite recently. Now, that was the first event of its kind, and it talked about setting up a strategic partnership between the European Union and Central Asia. Reading the communique from that summit, it seemed to me there was a lot of focus on areas such as raw materials, energy, transport. So my question to you is this new cooperation likely to be limited to those sort of economic areas, or do you think it could be more wide-ranging?
So first of all, let me say that I'm very happy that this summit took place and that there is more focus on this region, this part of the world, and that Europe sees that there's a need for a deeper cooperation with this part of the world. I would say, to answer your question, yes, of course, definitely, if you partner as European Union with Central Asia, of course, raw material, energy will always be in the focus, yeah, and will always be the main need for the European Union. But I think in the last few years, the world has changed dramatically. When I was a kid, I grew up in a globalized world. My feeling as a teenager was that the world is getting more and more connected, yeah? That we are all getting closer together. And in the last few years, everything has changed. We live in a divided world, we live in a more and more fragmented world. And unfortunately, if you see it from a European perspective, Europe was always used to be the center of the world. Yeah? Now, many Europeans and many European politicians still believe that Europe is the center of the world, but unfortunately, most people around the globe don't see it that way. So Europe has a need for also a geopolitical cooperation, for strong cooperation with countries like here, with countries in the region, in order to stay a global player. The ties with the relationship with China is a difficult one. The relationship with Russia is blown up because of the war. The relationship between most European politicians and the President of the US is not an easy one. So I think Europe is in a need for cooperation, and so I'm very happy that this summit took place, and it's more than just talking about raw materials and energy.
Yes, I was going to just pick up on that that last point you made about the United States, Russia, and China. As you say, there've been kind of surprises, not to say tensions, with the United States of a kind that one hasn't seen really in living memory. There is the war in Ukraine. There's a relationship with China that seems to now be a question of, well, because of the problems in ties with Washington and Moscow, should the Europeans perhaps get a bit closer to the Chinese, or perhaps should they not? So these debates going on. With all that in mind, what could be unique or different about the European connection with Central Asia, with Kazakhstan? What would make what would be a strong basis for cooperation?
To be honest, I think that Kazakhstan positioned itself in the right way. It's a pragmatic approach, but it's an approach that makes a lot of sense. Being in this part of the world, I'm sure it's not easy to manage the relationship with China, with Russia and the West at the same time. But in a way, Kazakhstan is able to manage these relationships, and so I think this is not only the right approach for the country here, for the whole region, it's also something where Europe, if we are smart, can try to get a stronger cooperation and see the benefits for both sides. If you look at the European Union, unfortunately, when it comes to raw materials, when it comes to energy, we are very dependent. In the past, we had cheap Russian gas. Now we have to buy expensive LNG. So the situation has not become better for the European Union when it comes to raw materials, when it comes to energy. So I think having strategic cooperation with mid-power countries or mid-sized countries makes a lot of sense, not only here, also in South America, in the Gulf. I think this should be the strategic approach for the European Union. But of course, I come from Austria, a small neutral country. We always wanted to be bridge builders. So our interest and my personal interest is that the relations with all countries around the globe become better again. I hope that it's possible to end the war in Ukraine, to get back to normal diplomatic approach with all superpowers. I think this should be the goal. But besides that, if the goal is to de-risk, and that's the goal at the moment for the European Union, partners like Kazakhstan are definitely needed.
You mentioned the position of Austria as a neutral power, and many, if not most people in the audience will recall that before you became Chancellor, you were, of course, Minister of Foreign Affairs in Austria. Going back to that time, when you were Minister of Foreign Affairs, did you and your ministry take a lot of interest in Central Asia at that time? If so, how did you see the region? This was before. It's around 2013 to 2017. I should let the audience know. So it was long before the Russian invasion in 2022 of Ukraine, and you were there in the job when President Trump became president for the first time.
Correct.
But what about your perception and Austria's perception at that time of this region?
Look, this region was always important to us. There was always a good economic cooperation with this region. Of course, as foreign minister and as prime minister, I always met my counterparts here in the region. But I think things have changed, because looking back in my days as foreign minister 10 years ago, of course, this region was known for energy and raw materials. If you look at Kazakhstan now, for example, if you look on IT, on tech, on the developments in AI, there's a lot going on here, and from my perspective, it will be a big success story. If you look at all the international ratings on how digitalized the government is, Kazakhstan is on the top places in these rankings, which is amazing, and which was, of course, different in my days as foreign minister. So I think the development is a very positive one.
So what you're describing really is the possibility to be more involved, more connected on a basis of something a bit larger than just raw materials and energy.
From my perspective, definitely.
Okay. And last night I was listening to a member of the government here in Kazakhstan who referred to this phrase one hears more and more, and I think you used it yourself just now, this phrase of the middling powers, of which many would include Kazakhstan. And he said, you know, well, okay, middling
If you
power.
come from a small country, you like these
Yes.
terms. Yeah?
Yes, of course.
There should be more than just the three big players in the world.
But it's better than being called a small power, of course, I suppose. But the point he made was, he said, if you do use this phrase for Kazakhstan, then it shouldn't be just a case of the middling powers sitting and taking notes, he said, as it were, from a lecturer, as it were, a larger lecturer. Do you sympathize with that point of view?
Of course, and I think if you look at how messed up the situation is at the moment, and how big the tensions are between the West and Russia, I think it's absolutely important to have other countries involved, also countries outside the European Union, which try to take a positive role in this conflict and in this world order where we have by far too many tensions. Also, the Middle East, for example, is playing an extremely positive role here. And if you look at or if you focus on the question what's possible, also small or medium-sized countries can become super successful. Look at the UAE, for example. The minister is present here today. Look at countries like Singapore. So I think there are examples in the world that show that success is possible everywhere, and that you don't have to be the US or other big players to be innovative and leading in AI and other areas.
And do you think that the Europeans, I mean, bearing in mind what you said earlier about having this perception of themselves as being at the centre of the world for several centuries now, so do you think the Europeans listen closely enough to these countries you were just mentioning? You said the UAE, Singapore, Kazakhstan, others. Should they listen more closely?
Well, I would say it depends who we are talking about. Of course, you have politicians in the European Union who think that not only our system is the best, but we are top in class. Everybody else in the world should listen to us, and the role of a European politician is to travel the world and lecture everybody how to behave. Of course, these people exist. But on the other hand, I think you have also a lot of politicians, and especially in the business sector, you have a lot of managers, people who want to really engage with the rest of the world and want to have a fair partnership with partners and players all around the world. So if you ask me, yes, we have a certain number of people in Europe who just want to lecture the rest of the world, but from my perspective there's a much bigger number of people who are open to cooperate and who see countries like Kazakhstan and the companies here as great partners to do business, and also to probably change the world in a better direction together.
In some ways it's a kind of battle for public opinion though as well, isn't it? Outside Europe or Europe and North America. Like, for example, in the case of the conflict in Gaza, and I think it became clear after a while for a lot of Europeans that, we're kind of being perceived by much of the outside world as being on the wrong side of the equation here. And yet, inside Europe, it's a very divisive issue. It's difficult to get all governments on the same page.
Yeah, look, and this will stay like that because the European Union is a union of 27 member states, and we are united within the EU, but also the motto of the European Union is united in diversity. So you will always have to deal with a European Union where you will find different opinions and approaches in different areas. I think there are many positive examples that it seems to always work to get some kind of common ground or similar understanding. Also when it comes, for example, to how to deal with Russia, the European Union managed quite well to stay more or less aligned. But of course, it's a union of 27 member states. These member states are very different. You cannot compare the east to the west and the north to the south. It will stay like this, but I think we should not be afraid of this diversity. I think this diversity is something that makes the European Union unique and, from my perspective, also strong. But of course, when it comes to foreign policy, partners will sometimes have to accept that there is not only one position, but that there are areas where we have common ground and areas where we have slightly different opinions.
Okay. I've just seen there's a very eager young fellow over here who'd like to put a question to you. So I'm going to ask if you could introduce yourself and then just.
Do I need any microphone? My voice is strong enough, I believe. I'm the former ambassador of Kazakhstan to Austria. Currently, I am Secretary General of the partner organization to OSCE. I would say the Asian version of OSCE, maybe a better one. Sorry.
All good.
But I would like to comment first, Sebastian Kurz just fulfilled his promise to me to visit Kazakhstan. And my congratulations to you first.
Thank you.
Second, I remember the very successful drive of Austrian chairmanship in the OSCE in 2017 when Sebastian Kurz was the minister and he solved the issue and Thomas Kremike was elected as the Secretary General and Kazakhstan was very much conducive to that. I personally chaired the second dimension of the OSCE and I was so happy that we made a progress within this dimension at least. My question about the European Union and Central Asia relations. During the ministerial meeting of OSCE back in 2007, Carl Bildt, then Foreign Minister of Sweden, he proposed a smaller model of relations between Nordic, Baltic and Central Asia. The idea was very great. The integration level of Nordics, how they implemented that within the European Union in the Baltic countries, and how it could be a model for Central Asian integration. In 2007 it was very much actual because at that time the level of integration within the region was not on the level of today. Well, my question, today, having the new strategy, the second edition of EU strategy, unfortunately, on Central Asia, not for Central Asia. Within this framework, could we think about the idea of creating a smaller alliance? For instance, Central Europe, Central Asia, with the leading role of small European countries, with the Austria, for instance, on top. This is my first question. My second question, rather on a maybe personal level. You are the youngest foreign minister, the youngest chancellor of Austria. I am the youngest ambassador of Kazakhstan ever. So, what do you wish to say to this young audience? How you would encourage the youth of Kazakhstan or Central Asia? What kind of things they should pursue to get something in order to give more? My questions. Thank you.
So if you allow, I start with the first question. I think your idea makes a lot of sense, and I think it's something natural. The European Union is a union of 27 member states, and of course for this region is closer to the Central Eastern European countries than it is to countries like Portugal or Spain. I think that's very natural. So you will always have in these partnerships countries within the European Union that have a stronger need for such partnerships or want to invest more or see a bigger potential than others. So I think that makes sense. It's very natural and absolutely something I think, which could be the right approach. And I think Austria is definitely always interested in having a leading role in such partnerships. And your second question, I'm so positive being here because I had the honor to meet so many young talents and also entrepreneurs here in the morning. So from my perspective, there's huge potential in Kazakhstan. I channeled all my energy at the beginning of my career to politics. Yeah, now I'm in the private sector. I think both is good. Both make sense. Yeah. So I think the most important thing for young people, from my perspective, I'm probably too young to give advice, but the most important thing from my perspective is to figure out what you really like, where you think that you can contribute, where you have the feeling that you want to contribute, and then focus on that and work hard. In my case, it was politics for 15 years. Now it's the private sector. It would be difficult to tell for me what is better or what I enjoy more, but I think it's always good to know what you want to do and then focus on that and do it with a lot of passion and energy.
Thank you. I'll take one more question, but it has to be short. We've only got a couple of minutes. Louder.
Interpreters do need the speakers to use the microphone, please.
My question, how was the Chancellor and the Foreign Minister of the neutral country? That was very challenging. How it's hard or challenging to keep the country neutrality in a challenging
Yeah.
How it's hard to keep the neutrality for the main countries in this very challenging.
Yeah. So, question was about neutrality of Austria. So, look, Austria is a military neutral country, but that doesn't mean that there's no political opinion. We are part of the European Union, so Austria always supported all the sanctions decided by the European Union, took part in these decisions within the European Union. So I would say how to stay military neutral is easy because it's part of our constitution. So it's not a decision, it's within our constitution. And politically, of course, Austria takes sides, has an opinion, and is engaged within the European Union.
Yes, I think that's very true. I mean, you may not know this, Sebastian, but I actually worked in Austria in the early 1980s, 1983.
Really? Learn something new again.
Exactly. And that was long before Austria, long before the end of the Cold War, long before Austria joined the European Union. So I remember what Austrian foreign policy was like then compared with later. And it has changed. It has changed in the way you describe. That's all we have time for, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like you to thank our guest, Sebastian Kurz.
Thank you very much.
Enjoy the rest of the day.
CNN to be media partners listening later. Does that work?
Yeah, great.
We are honoured to be here as media partners to the event and to spend the next half hour or so talking about Croatia and its increasing role really in Europe and how it's speaking to the EU, for the EU in many circumstances, and also developing that position in your region where you're playing an increasing role really in how all those countries are dealing with the current situation in Europe and around the world. Croatian Minister of Economy and Sustainable Development, Ante Šušnja, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for the invitation.
I mean, your country has a particular perspective on war. It's the most recent one that we remember before the Ukraine war. And you see many parallels between what happened in the 1990s and what we're seeing now, particularly in terms of Russia's playbook. Is that right?
Yes, we experienced aggression in Croatia in 90s. I was 7-year-old when that took place, and I think every war is a disaster fact that happens, and in 2025 when we see this progress in techniques, in energy, in everything, we still have a fact that people are getting killed on the soil of the Europe, who is, we can say, most continent that is in forward of the others, together with the United States of America, and this is disappointing, and I hope it will end very soon. We don't know. We do not need any more deaths.
And this idea that Russia could keep certain parts of Ukraine is something that your country is particularly against. You think that's unacceptable because it's something that you felt happened to you as well, and that was not the solution.
Yes, that and we have experience. We have experience with that, and we negotiated the reintegration of the east part of Croatia that was also occupied. First part near to the coast, we acquired back with the military forces, and there was a peace agreement that was signed, and Croatian sovereignty was recognized on the whole territory and decided to reintegrate the eastern part of Europe. So I think that the best way is to finish the war and start negotiations
about the occupied areas.
We need to stop killing people every day, hundreds and hundreds of people.
In terms of the European transatlantic alliance, another issue obviously that you're preoccupied with right now, because you're part of the European Union, you're getting involved in these negotiations with the US, you've got this threat of tariffs hanging over you. Just today we saw that those tariffs in a US court are being questioned. What is the European Union's strategy here?
European strategy, as you know, the tariffs are common politics of the EU level. It is not single for each country member, and we are calling all the time for the negotiations to de-escalate this tariff war, let's say, and we are ready to act and promptly if necessary, but we hope and we look in the future that there is no necessity for this kind of tariffs between the EU and the United States of America, because we discussed, we have human rights, we have labor law rights that are mostly the same, and we have same the opportunity for market shares, and the trade is between the EU and the US is constant, and
And huge.
And huge.
It's $1 trillion.
Yes, and there is, I think that there is no necessary tariffs for this exchange.
So
at all.
ultimately, you're looking at a free trade deal.
Free
effectively.
trade deal, yes, absolutely.
But if they come back to you and say 50%, is that all organised how you'll respond in that situation, and it'll be automatic?
Yeah, many consultations were done on the EU level, and EU will react promptly with the tariffs towards the US goods.
Obviously, the European Union isn't a country. It sometimes feels as if the president talks about it as a country. You can't make decisions as quickly as a president who's very much in control and making all the decisions. That's obviously caused some tension because you're not responding quickly enough to him. But do you think that that is just part of this negotiation?
I think that this, despite the fact that maybe some decisions cannot be so fast passed, this is not the for this time, because this is the issue that matters just on EU level. The member states cannot solely act, and many consultations were made, but we can see that it is very dynamic. One day you have 100%, 500% tariffs, and now you have the decision of the US courts that this is not allowed. We will see what will be. But EU is ready to act promptly, and we have consultations on a daily basis, and we will be forced to react.
Has it made the EU stronger?
Absolutely.
I mean, you're famous for having disagreements.
Absolutely.
And being quite bureaucratic, but you feel this is united.
In every evil, some goods come.
I wanted to talk a bit about energy security, because that's something that you're deeply involved in. How much Russian energy is Europe currently relying on, would you say? In terms, I mean, I know that Croatia is pretty much down to zero now, which was a challenge.
Yeah, that was a challenge, and from start of the Ukrainian Russian aggression to Ukraine, 2022, we are now zero with Russian fossil fuels, because we put a lot of effort to ensure energy security and reduce this reliance on Russian fossil fuels. That is because we leveraged our LNG terminal on the island of Kirk. It is operational since 2021, and we increased significantly the capacity of the LNG terminal. It was at first it was 2.6 billion cubic meters. We increased it to 2.9, and this summer we will increase it to 6.1. Just to have broader picture, Croatian consumption of the gas is around 2.5 billion cubic meters. So this is because of the solidarity of our neighbor countries, mostly the Slovenia and Hungary, but also it will be available to deliver the gas to Bosnia and Herzegovina. And we think that that was a great decision of our government and Prime Minister Plenković to build this ship LNG terminal on island of Kirk. Also, we have this Adriatic pipeline, which can utilize around 16 million tons of oil, and that is sufficient to provide the oil for refineries in Hungary and Slovakia in full capacity operating. Also, we provide oil for Serbia through this pipeline, and absolutely we through this Repower EU initiative, we invested 1.43 billion euros in our infrastructure to upgrade also the pipelines. the LNG, the gas pipelines. And after finishing this upgrade, we will be able to provide gas even to Germany, southern Germany, Bavaria, Austria and Slovenia. Now it goes to Hungary and Slovenia.
And Hungary, there are countries still taking a lot of fuel from Russia, right?
They still have an exception from the sanctions.
Are you able to compete with that price?
We just provide the facility for transportation of the oil, and as I know, it's 2% of the final cost of the gas of the oil, and we are able to deliver them a whole volume that they need for their refineries. But
So,
decision is not up to Croatia where they will buy it in the future.
But it's interesting how you have very much been at the heart taking off the European dependence on Russian energy, which people thought was impossible when people started first talking about it at the beginning of the war, but it's actually happened very quickly.
Yes, and we now took a position as an energy hub for the EU, not just energy. We discussed with the Kazakhstan colleagues here that we can use Croatian ports for import goods from this part of the world, because Croatia is has a strategic location. It connects the Mediterranean and Central Europe and Southern Eastern Europe. This makes a natural hub for us, even energy, but this is much like Kazakhstan geostrategic location in Central Asia.
Yes.
So we can be the door for entrance of the goods, all kind of goods to the EU. And this is very important because of diversification of goods from Russia.
And you're also investing a lot in renewables, and that's quite recent investment, but how much impact is that actually having? How much of a proportion of your energy are you able to get from renewables?
At the moment, Croatia acquires 2/3 energy from the renewables. We have a great hydro potential. This is most valuable renewable energy. But also we invested a significant amounts in solar and wind plants, and we are dedicated to achieve this net zero plan of the EU until 2050. At the moment, I can say that we managed to connect 1,500 megawatts of the renewables to the grid, and up to 2028 we will be connecting around 2,500 megawatts of the renewable electricity on the Croatian grid. So we recognize the also crucial role of the low carbon hydrogen also, and we have a partnership with Slovenia and Italia, especially Friuli Venezia Giulia region, building a regional hydrogen economy that will also be based in the island of Krk.
And your grid plugs into the entire European grid, am I right in saying?
Yes, it is, and we are very well interconnected with the other countries, but we have some challenges due to our geographical position of the shape of Croatia, and we are planning to invest significant amounts in our internal grid. Also, we are discussing interconnections under the sea with Italy, and I think that will improve resilience of all interconnected countries.
Which we saw tested, didn't we, in southern Europe with Spain and Portugal having complete blackouts, and we're still trying to work out, have you figured out what caused that yet? Have you got any intel on that?
We have some assumptions what happened, but last summer, in the early dates of my mandate, we faced also part Croatia with the blackout that was started from Montenegro-Albanian border, and Albania, Montenegro, Bosnia and Herzegovina, and southern part of Croatia was out of electricity. We came back in 2 hours because we have these hydropower plants that can ensure electricity very soon. Because of the relay systems that was installed in the part of Croatia, the blackout is stopped in that part that does not go wider to the maybe whole Europe. But also this problem I discussed with our engineers in Spain and Portugal is probably based because of the many solar and wind production. Also when we take into account that we need to go to renewable energy, but also we need to base load energy to stabilize the system.
Because it reached capacity and there was a
Absolutely.
blacked out effectively.
Yeah.
So you think that's, I mean, even if it wasn't the reason, there is a risk that that can happen under these new systems. So these are the sort of things you have to think about when building up the European system.
Yes, we need to think about it because it's a very volatile energy in a manner of energy produced from solar and wind, but we have hydropower for stabilization of the system, but also we think that transition cannot be done without nuclear energy.
Yes.
And it is also base load energy that can stabilize the system. But in Croatia we are developing also the geothermal potential. It is also renewable 100% and it's a base load energy produced 24/7. And that is a key point for stabilization of the grid. Also, some developers are developing some reversible hydropower plants, but we will see what will be with that, with great potential in Croatia, but with benefits for whole Europe.
The nuclear energy plan, I mean, it takes so long to build one, doesn't it? And you need expertise from companies abroad. I think, have you spoken to some American companies about helping with the nuclear plan?
There is many companies, but it takes some time to build. Croatia at the moment is owner of 50% of the one nuclear power plant. It is situated in Slovenia. We own 50% and we acquire amount of 60% of the whole amount of our electricity consumption from that power plant. There is discussion regarding building the other one near this one. That is something what takes time, let's say like that, this big power plant. But we see the opportunity in the SMRs, small modular reactors.
Yes.
In the Croatian Ministry of Economy, we appointed a working group for amendment our law of nuclear energy and for establishing after that agency for nuclear power.
And you're doing public consultations because it's still a sensitive issue,
yes,
isn't it?
still a sensitive issue, but this kind of nuclear plants, SMRs, are much safer than before. They have different cooling processes than these conventional, let's say,
Yes.
nuclear power plants, and it's much safer than before. And we will see to develop this program in Croatia. We are making many consultations with the developers of the technology, and we will take, after we amend our law, we will have a public discussion regarding this, but I think the entrepreneurs and the citizens are very interested for building it because of the security of supply.
Because you get the volatility with renewables, is what you're saying, which you don't
Absolutely,
get.
yeah. And this is, renewables are good, we need renewables, but without this base load energy, either if it is hydro or nuclear or geothermal, it cannot go without it.
You've worked very hard that the Asia pipeline is this crucial sort of infrastructure for your whole region. If at some point, you know, everything is resolved with Russia, I mean, what happens then? Is this just a case of making sure that there's a system in place within Europe that we can use, whatever happens with Russia, and if Russia comes back on tap, then maybe we will start buying from there again, because it's going to be cheaper, isn't it?
We will see that,
Yeah.
but our pipeline was operating even before this war. We now just increase the volumes and our readiness to increase the capacities, but we were operating even before when whole Europe was buying the energy and oil from Russia, so maybe it's a bit utilized more than before.
In terms of the European Union, you said that actually it's become a lot closer together and you're working much more closely together. Have you been surprised by particular countries that Croatia has built partnerships on recently because of this, unification around the battle in Ukraine?
They have their own interest, and that is why they are acting like that. But and they did not experience what we experienced recently. But we cannot just take into account just economic benefits that we acquire from this. This is wider questions. Even we have basic human rights in ourselves,
yes,
and basic respect for the humans. I think that is a disaster when in the heart of Europe people get killed today.
And take us through what you've done, what Croatia's done to support Ukraine, because you don't have the same resources as France or Germany.
Yeah, absolutely. We support economically, and we support in military equipment. And Croatia is a small country, but we until now provided more than 300 million euros of the support. We're trying to help, and we're helping to take into force again the infrastructure in Ukraine to make these people live normal as it possible in that occasions. Our electricity companies are present with the knowledge and with the materials that we donate to the Ukrainian side, but we have transfer of knowledge also and transfer of the military equipment that is necessary for the Ukrainians.
And the experience you had in the 1990s has been useful to the Ukrainian military, presumably.
Absolutely, and now when we speak, I think that there is no more experienced military now than Ukrainians, because they are experiencing it in real. It's not for a game, like when you train. When we have some bilateral meetings and conventional war is past. Now you need to apply all these techniques and that we have disposable to prevail in the war. It's a very big story that they tell regarding the techniques that they apply in this war.
Well, hopefully,
I think they will be the ones who will teach on the academies of the military academies.
Genuine
in future.
experience.
Yeah.
Ante Shishnia, thank you so much for speaking to me today, and hopefully we work towards peace at some point in Ukraine, sooner rather than later. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for your invitation.
Hello, yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
If you've come for the conversation about agriculture, you're in the wrong room. We're here to talk about mining and the future of mining, and we're joined by Robert Friedland, who really needs no introduction yet. Of course, I will introduce him in any case. Robert, you've been called one of the most successful miners on the planet, one of the best explorers for critical minerals, a man quite literally gifted with the Midas touch. You've made, 7, 8 virgin discoveries in I don't know how many countries, in Canada, in Mongolia, in the Democratic Republic of Congo. What brings you to Kazakhstan?
We're no strangers to Kazakhstan. We love this country. We first came here in the 1990s. It's stunning to see how much has been achieved in this country by the educated young population. From a geological perspective, Kazakhstan sits on the Trans-Tethys Belt, a giant zipper on the planet that carries mineralization from the Balkans in Europe, through Turkey, across Iran, through Afghanistan, through Western China, Kazakhstan, very much on that belt, and then into Mongolia. So it sits on a silk road of mineralization where our planet was sutured together. If we drill under our feet, it's hot down there and it's liquid. And as the plate has cooled, Kazakhstan is a place that is very highly mineralized, sitting next to China, which is the largest consumer of all materials. Very, very favorable location, very favorable and lucky for the Kazakh population. And I'm amazed that I came here when this place was called Akmola, and there was nothing here in the 1990s. And this magnificent city is one of the cleanest, best administered, most modern cities in the world. And it's just an astonishing sort of vision that this country has achieved, maintaining its independence and balancing giants from all over the world. So hats off to Kazakhstan. What a wonderful country. And we think this country has a very, very bright future in the way it has managed to sort of work with everybody and for the benefit of humanity. It's probably a very good model for our planet that we find, maybe we should all be a little bit more like Kazakhstan. Because we all live on this little planet together, and things are getting rather dangerous. There's 7 or 8 billion of us here, and so this country has a tremendous future, in my considered opinion. It's great to be here.
Let's come back to how you balance competing interests and geopolitical issues a little bit later. But first,
with difficulty.
Many of the people here will have seen that you met the president of Kazakhstan, President Tokayev, yesterday.
Yes.
I'm sure the president would have no objection to you telling us exactly what was said in that room, right? But no, in any case, what did you talk about, and what did you make of the president?
I can't talk about the honor of meeting.
Come on, we won't tell anyone.
He speaks several languages. His English is perfect. And his clarity of thought and his demeanor would make him more appropriate for president of the world than the president of just this country. If we had more leaders like him, the world would be more cooperative, more balanced, and more looking towards our children and our grandchildren. The polarization we face is illogical and profoundly dangerous. And so I have the deepest respect for the vision of the Kazakh government. How they've developed this country is amazing. There are few of these sort of what were middle income countries that have managed to kind of stitch the world together in a world that's balkanizing. In general, we've gone from an integrated world economy to a just-in-case economy, just in case there's a war or a disruption. Each nation is looking for their own supply chain. This country has both a very profound geological endowment in crude oil, in energy resources, and in metals, and in agriculture, and in a huge, I think, an amazingly well-educated young population in the heart of Asia. What an incredible opportunity! And it's like a smaller version of China. Now, of course, Kazakhstan has benefited from proximity to China. China's had the world's greatest economic growth, but you also have investors from the West, and you also have the benefit of Soviet Union science and technology. So you're probably sitting right at the center of the world here.
So let's talk about critical minerals. 5 years ago, if we were having this conversation at a conference, you might expect it to have taken place in a tiny room in the basement of the venue. No one cared about critical minerals. No one cared about miners. But now, critical minerals, it's all you hear about. It's all the rage. It's discussed almost daily in the news. So as we all learn about critical minerals, what is it that we need to know? What is it that we need to know about mining that we don't already understand?
Everything you touch, we either grew it agriculturally or we mined it. And we mined this microphone here, and we mined those steel chairs you're sitting on, and the mining is keeping the lights on up there. And it's all integrated because that which we grew, we could not have grown without mining, because the tractors and the implements and the fertilizers, we also mined. And in a world that starts to break itself apart into competing blocks, it becomes readily apparent that without an integrated world economy, each nation is at risk of not being able to maintain the sophisticated lifestyle we have in the modern world. So you can't get a Boeing aircraft, for example, without 1,000 different metals. And the situation could evolve that we all kill each other just by starving each other in the supply chain. Critical raw materials are absolutely necessary for the sophisticated technology systems we have today, and they're not evenly distributed on the planet. Some places are lucky and have a large endowment. For example, Kazakhstan is the largest producer of uranium in the world. In the world. Amazing. How did that happen? Why is the uranium here? Why is it somewhere else? So this is the mystery of geology and geological endowment. So this country had a Soviet Union era geological exploration, and the Russians were very good geologists. They're superb. And of course, Kazakhstan had nuclear weapons and had the Baikonur space launching capability. And then exploration sort of quieted down, and the country is actually underexplored relative to its geological potential. And in the last 20 or 30 years, just as Astana has risen as a new city, technology has changed very dramatically, enabling us to use very sophisticated software and new hardware systems. And we can do more exploration now in 5 years than we used to be able to do in 50 years. And so large open areas without a lot of people, because people are a problem for mineral exploration. You want open grassland. You don't want to disturb anything more than camels or sheep, a little bit, and as little as possible. Areas on the right trends become very interesting for sophisticated mineral exploration. And it's likely that less than 1% of what Kazakhstan has yet been discovered, even within the top kilometer or two.
What are you doing now, and how big, as the exploration continues in Kazakhstan, how big of a deal do you think Kazakhstan can become to the mining world?
Well, in the world of copper, if you're reading Copper magazine, there are porphyry coppers which are like giant loaves of bread. They're as big as cities. They're very capital intensive. A typical porphyry at scale, if it's a tier 1 mine, is 5 or 10 or 20 billion dollars of capital. And they occur here in Kazakhstan. That type of copper can occur here. But there's another type of copper, sedimentary copper, which is really oil field geology, but it's an oil field with copper in it. And the largest endowment of that type of copper is in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. The second largest is in Poland. The Poles have been mining sedimentary copper. It's the largest industrial enterprise in Poland. And the third largest basin of that type is here in Kazakhstan, and the least explored and the least understood. So we just put a few pennies into exploration here, working with Hollis Resources, a private company composed of geologists. We're tipping an initial $100 million plus or minus in stages to use our experience in Africa in this type of sedimentary copper to see what could be found here. And the potential is real. There are existing mines here of that type, and they'd be very important for the Kazakh nation to find them, because as Kazakhstan industrializes and makes a more modern country, it will need that copper right here for electrification and for national security. And then there are many other neighbors that want that copper. China is the largest importer of copper in the world, for example. But Kazakhstan is now going to grow so fast they'll want this copper for their own economy. And to find that here generates a lot of employment. And I want to assure everybody, this kind of mining does not hurt the earth. It's not open, you don't even see the open pit, it's mined underground. And now we have 3G wireless underground. We have broadband underground. We'll mine this with robots. I'd say one 18-year-old young woman with an iPad will be able to operate these mines. They'll all be mechanized. There'll be very little human labor involved. And so they're very, very attractive type of mineral occurrence to find, especially so near in the heart of Asia where there's such a big demand for these metals. If you're guilty of doing a Google search, any of you have done a Google search? If you touch that computer key and go, you're using the amount of electricity that a 100-watt bulb uses to run about 12 seconds. If you're doing an AI search and you touch that key for ChatGPT-4, you're using about 30 to 40 to 50 times more power. The power to run a light bulb for 3 or 4 minutes. And as all your kids are going to grow up on AI, and the world is going to run on this, there's an insatiable demand for uninterruptible power, and that will require copper metal and a lot of other metals that are used in the servers. A lot of people don't know what is involved in an AI server, but there are a lot of critical metals. There's about 20 of them that are needed to build a modern server farm. Now, if Kazakhstan has an endowment of these kinds of metals, Kazakhstan becomes like a little Saudi Arabia. And that potential is real. And what's amazing to me is that the presidency in this country and the government of this country has been very prescient in improving the fiscal framework for investing in mining. The government has opened the door to international capital and technology to do this, and that's a very good decision on the part of the government. And you know, all the bees will come to the honey. You need a success to attract everybody. One large mineral discovery here will drive everybody crazy, you know. And so we're back. We were here a long time ago. And it's just amazing for me to try to tell you how much this country has changed.
You touched on this, but you know, it won't come as a surprise to you that many people view the endeavor, there's this stereotype of mining, or this understanding that mining is somehow environmentally unfriendly. Talk to us about that perception and how you see mining technology changing, what you're doing to change mining technology to balance the need for these critical minerals with the need to address climate change, for example.
It's completely durak to think that mining is environmentally unfriendly. Durak. Anything you want to do to improve the environment requires these metals. If you want solar power or wind power, if you want batteries, you want electric cars, you want anything to give a cleaner and better lifestyle for your kids, you need to mine those critical raw materials. If you want to use crude oil in a cleaner way to make plastics or to make lighter cars, half the cost of building an electric car is the hydrocarbon in that car to make the plastics in that car. You need to mine. You just need to mine in a better way, in a different way. You know, our ancestors used to club each other over the head with clubs. The military has changed. But all solutions for a world with 8 billion people in it require us to change the way we mine, to do that in a better way. And I can assure everybody here, mining has changed a lot. The managers of the major mining companies think differently. And there's no rational criteria to complain about mining. Now, if you eat meat, maybe the cow is not happy when it's slaughtered. And if you pull a carrot out of the ground, maybe the carrot screams if you're a vegetarian. But the rock doesn't apparently feel anything when you're underground driving a tunnel. Maybe it's a kind of violence to a rock. Do you think a rock can feel pain? I'm not sure. But we have to do something as human beings to look after each other in a cleaner and better way. Now, this whole city is amazing. I can't believe the scale of this. When I first came here, there was nothing here really but snow. Everything that you see here was mined. The steel and the concrete and the cabling and the power generation, everything is mining. So let's not talk about Durak people who think that you can live without mining. In the Colorado School of Mines, this is America's best mining school, they have bumper stickers on the cars. One says, "Earth first, we'll mine the other planets later." And the other one is, "Stop mining, we'll let the bastards freeze in the dark." So we just don't have a better world without mining. We just have to do it in a better way. Now the Mongolians, my brothers from Mongolia, they're your cousins here. They have a big new mine, Oyatolwe. Close to $20 billion has been invested in that mine. We found it in the Gobi Desert in 1998 to 2001 period. And it's completely operated by Mongolians, young Mongolian men and women that weren't really trained in mining. They were traditional herders. They have camels and goats and sheep, and maybe they came from the camp. They had no background at all in mining. We trained them. And I think, I don't know the exact, maybe 93%, maybe 94% of the employees are young Mongolians. And that mine is a huge enterprise that will run for 100 people for the Mongolian people. And you know, the nice thing about it is nobody can take that mine away from the Mongolians. It's a gift from Genghis Khan because he held that land. No foreign mining company can pick it up and take it home. So if somebody finds a mine in your country, it's yours. It's yours. If you bite the hand of the foreign investors, they might not come back and give you more money, but that mine is yours. So it would be very good for Kazakhstan to develop its mineral industry to scale, and the government has been correct and visionary in these new policies. We're very happy to say that.
I know two things that you're concerned about in general when it comes to critical minerals is the amount of electrical energy that is used to quite literally crush the rock after you've got the ore out of the ground. But and so I want to ask you about the technology you're working on to improve how that's done.
Yes.
And also how you can unlock energy and power through mining.
If you take the electricity to run one of those light bulbs for 10 minutes, it's a very small amount of electrical energy. In American dollars, it would be 0.00001 of a penny. I don't know in tenge, but it's not much money to run a light bulb 10 minutes. But if you take that small quantum of energy and you squeeze it and release it in a billionth of a second, it has the power of a nuclear power plant for a billionth of a second. A lot of people don't understand the difference between energy and power, but you can create a huge amount of power with a very small amount of energy. In former Soviet Union, this work was done in Tomsk in Siberia, where the Soviet Union had a center of excellence in pulse electrical power, mainly for atomic weaponry. That same core principle can be used to crush and grind rock with a huge reduction in energy, and it can be used to look into the earth. When I was a boy, we had Superman comics, and Superman, when he wasn't Superman, his name was Clark Kent, and they would change it to a Superman outfit, become Superman. But Superman had the ability to look through walls. He could see right through walls, you know. We have the ability now with a magic pair of glasses to look right into the earth. We can see 3 kilometers deep, and we can see water, we can see gold, we can see copper, we can see any electrically conductive metal, orders of magnitude than we were able to do even 5 years ago. This requires us to compress electrical energy and inject very powerful bursts of energy into the earth. And if there's water, water is electrically conductive. If there's metal, metal is electrically conductive. It will absorb that electrical energy and discharge it more slowly than the unmineralized area. Let me explain again. If we take a 1957 Volkswagen Beetle and we bury it 2 or 3 kilometers deep, without going down there, we can image it like a CAT scan or MRI and show you that it's not a 1958 Volkswagen Beetle by the shape of the rear bumper. And we could never do that before. You remember when you were a kid, somebody would have a metal detector on the beach looking for a gold coin. But that metal detector could only see a few inches deep.
Otherwise, we'd be
Now we can
very
look down
rich.
Kilometers. Another way of saying it is that Ryan and I go scuba diving off of San Francisco, California. He's got his wetsuit, I've got his wetsuit. The water's cloudy, and he swims up to me, and I think it's my friend Ryan until I put on my goggles, and with more resolution, I realize it's a great white shark. The problem in mineral exploration is we don't have the resolution, the sharpness. And so new technology has evolved to enable us to look in the earth in an unprecedented way. And that's really important for a nation like Kazakhstan that's so big. If you go fishing and you have a very small net, let's have a little net in my hand here. I'm only going to catch a little fish, little goldfish. But if you have a giant net, you might catch a whale, but you can't catch a whale in a little net. So a nation like Kazakhstan that's very big, has a very large landmass, must have sleeping under that landmass several supergiant mineral deposits, several. But we can't do it the old-fashioned way. It's just too expensive and too time-consuming. So there is technology now available to speed up the exploration process.
I'm not sure exactly how much time we have. If anyone knows, please do let me know, because I don't have a clock up. We have 5 minutes. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, then let me briefly ask you, just real quickly, if you could answer how you can use that same technology to crush rock, and also how you can use it to unlock energy. Maybe if you...
So since we were cave people, we've been crushing rock to break it into little pieces, and smaller down to sand and then talcum powder, and then get the metal out. That's what we have at Oyu Tolgoi. We have giant factories to do that in Mongolia, for example. You have that here in your copper industry. We have a completely different approach. We're tearing rocks apart from the inside. And we're doing that with about an 80% reduction in energy. And that changes the definition of what is ore, which is rock that you can mine at a profit. And it's very green because you don't have to build giant power plants to run the mines. So the important thing to tell the young Kazakh nation is that you have an incredible government. You really have an incredible government of young Kazakh people. And looked from the perspective of one lifetime, all the accretion of all the technologies that the world is developing, like artificial intelligence, or new ways to crush and grind rock, or new ways to explore, will really help this country explode in economic growth. This country has an enormously attractive future in mineral exploration and development. Probably a lot better than you think or know or can even imagine. And the changes that are coming in the next 5 years in technology are really mind-blowing, especially on our ability to find these things in the first place and then to mine them in a better way.
So you're exploring for copper here in Kazakhstan. Obviously, copper is necessary for the electrification of the planet. There's also a lot of concern about, let's say in the United States, in the West, around the world, as you were talking about, in countries' abilities to secure the critical minerals they need. So, but I wanted to ask you, for example, battery technology is changing so quickly. How do you know what to look for? And do we need to be concerned, for example, that nickel or cobalt or manganese or lithium are things that we may not have access to tomorrow?
So if you have an electric car, the reason you need a battery is that you don't want to drive down the highway with an extension cord and keep it plugged in. And if you're going to have a humanoid robot, he or she will run on a battery for sure. And battery technology is also changing very dramatically. And the new generation of batteries that we're working on, this is American technology, uses no nickel and no cobalt and no graphite and no manganese, but it does need lithium as a metal. And so battery technology is evolving extremely rapidly. And the next generation of batteries, you'll plug in your iPhone and it'll run for 2 weeks before you charge it again. And the same thing is coming to the electrification of the automobile. We're just beginning an incredible acceleration in technology, mind-blowing. And all of these technologies are coming together, and I'm happy to tell you mining is part of that. And mining is the stupidest, most old-fashioned of all industries, and thus benefits the most from all this new technology that's coming to the world.
And on that note, because I think this may be the last question, what gets you most excited about the future of mining and mining technology? What technology, what capability do you see that may be coming that gets you really excited?
I'm obsessed with pulse electrical power. When Thomas Alva Edison was alive, he thought that the world was going to run on direct electrical current. He got in a big fight with George Westinghouse and Nikola Tesla, who predicted the world would run on alternating current. About 97% of the electricity in the world is alternating current. I don't want to get into the war of the currents, but these guys did have a big fight over it. There is a third way to use electrical energy, which is pulse electrical power, and that will change everything. And it'll make life better for your kids and your grandkids and give us all a reason not to kill each other. It's really a bad idea to kill each other. It's really a good idea to leave a better future for our kids and our grandkids. I'm very happy to say I'm sure Kazakhstan is going to be a very, very important part of it. I couldn't be happier with our visit here. And I'm very deeply enamored with the people I've met, both the ministers and the time and the privilege I had to meet with your president.
Robert Friedland, please join me in giving Robert a big round of applause.
1, 2, 1, 2, testing. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, esteemed guests, and welcome to this conversation on shaping the future of payments in Central Asia and beyond. I'm Charlotte Kahn, I'm a journalist. I'm delighted to be hosting this session with our very special guest here today. That's Robert Thompson, Senior Vice President, Global Head of Government Engagement at Visa. Thank you so much for joining us here, Robert.
Charlotte, thank you. Thanks for being here.
So we're having an important conversation here this afternoon. I'm going to tell you why. Because this morning, President Tokayev, in his opening address, reminded us that in order to grow the economy, what's essential is to build a more diversified, a more inclusive, and importantly, a future-ready economy. And that can only happen if we further increase or improve the rate of digitalization. And it's also important because the expansion of digital payments is both a symptom and a cause of economic growth. And I'm going to share a few data points with you. Obviously, you know them, Robert, but the audience here to kickstart this conversation. Research by the Bank of International Settlement revealed that for every percentage point increase in the use of digital payments, there is a 0.10 percentage point rise in GDP growth over a 2-year period. And here in Kazakhstan, we've got a very inspiring and very encouraging case study because we've got this very fast adoption of digital payments from taxis to bazaar traders. Cashless payments have very quickly become the norm, hence the title of this session, Leapfrogging to Digital Payments. And in fact, 85% of all transactions were made digitally, according to the National Bank of Kazakhstan as of December 2024. So, Robert, to start this conversation, could you offer us your assessment of the digital payment landscape here in Kazakhstan and what's allowed this leapfrogging?
Yes, Charlotte, thank you very much. And it's just an honor to be here as part of the Astana International Forum. This is my first time in Kazakhstan, but not my first time studying in Kazakhstan. And Visa has been part of the Kazakhstan digital ecosystem for now over 30 years. And we've been really pleased to contribute to the digital transformation that's taking place. And it's really remarkable, and maybe just starting from a Visa perspective, Kazakhstan is the home of our regional hub for Central Asia, and so we manage all of the region from here. It's got a wonderful talent pool, wonderful sense of innovation, and that's really helped drive this leapfrogging that you referenced. Kazakhstan is also very much a connector economy. When you think about its role in the region, you think about its role in terms of the leadership in technology and digital payments, the economic drivers that you see here. And that's really important as you reflect then upon all the transformation taking place. And maybe just in addition to a few of the statistics that you referenced, Charlotte, I'd mention a couple of other ones, which I think enhance the point that you made. If you look at access to digital banking or banking accounts, you know, in Kazakhstan, about 12 years ago, it was less than 50%. Today, it's nearly 100%. The figures that you cited, the number of digital transactions that are occurring are well over 90%. And so much of that happens in the digital ecosystem with apps. These apps then are also connected to government. You know, the government technology services in the country, almost all the services, over 90% of government services, you can access electronically through these super apps connected to banks. And so you see this everywhere you go in the country. There's a digital element to it, which makes it much more accessible, makes it much more secure, and it brings more people into the economy in ways that help boost economic growth. So at Visa, we're really excited about not only the path we've traveled to get here, but also what the future looks like in terms of really building on this sustainable economic digital future.
And could you expand maybe a little bit further on what allowed this very fast adoption of digital payments? You've mentioned applications, for instance, but what created the right environment or framework for it to happen?
Yeah, there are a number of elements that you see in Kazakhstan, which I think reflect best practices that other countries are looking at as well. And I'd start with, digital identification, which is really important because, in the world of payments, you need to make sure the person paying is the person you know it to be. And so this digital identity is really important. And that has allowed the government apps to very easily be connected for consumers to use, for banks to apply them. So that is certainly one piece. And governments around the world are in different phases of how they evolve and use digital identity. And that's an area where Visa is certainly focused. Another is just if you think about the connectivity required to be truly digital, when you reflect on Kazakhstan as a vast country, very much part rural, a lot of urban areas, but the government has implemented a number of policies which promote digital and mobile access, which is really essential for, fulfilling the ability to make digital transactions. So that's really important. And then when you add in the inclusive financial experience, making sure people have access to accounts, all these ingredients, all these policies encourage advancement. And then the last one I might say is just an innovation mindset. So the ability to try new things, to see what learns. There's very much a test and learn ecosystem that exists in Kazakhstan in partnership with the regulators and the government to encourage enhancement in digital.
Thank you for that. So tell us a bit more about your activities at Visa and how they're aligned generally with the development of digital financial markets here in Kazakhstan.
Yeah, and so for Visa, we've actually launched a number of firsts in Kazakhstan. I think our first card issued in the country was in 1992. More recently, just in 2023, we launched something called Request to Pay, which is a new P2P service that allows you, if we have a shared expense, you can say, Baba, you owe me the 50 tenges for the lunch that we had or whatever. But it allows much more seamless connectivity of payments that can be leveraged through banks and for consumers and small businesses and entrepreneurs. So that was one example of innovation. Another example is Kazakhstan actually has been quite a leader in its own central bank digital currency, so the digital tenge. We actually launched the first Visa card that you could transact in digital tenge, which is really an important feature. And as governments around the world are looking at their own future of central bank digital currencies, it's a model that you can use and leverage. I think the other thing that's really important from a Visa perspective, maybe two other things. One is just as the world goes more digital, of course, the cyber criminals are not far behind. And so how we leverage AI, how we leverage our investments to make sure that payment systems are secure, that they're resilient, and that consumers have the necessary protections if something goes wrong. And that's where Visa is a leader, and I think we're working very closely with the regulators, with financial partners, fintechs, to make sure that the ecosystem is secure as it possibly can be.
You've mentioned AI. Who doesn't these days? It's hard to have a conversation on any topic without mentioning the disruption brought on by AI. So could you tell us a bit more about that and what it's going to change for digital payments? It's going to possibly increase, well, it's already increasing cybersecurity concerns, I guess, but there are opportunities too. So could you tell us a bit more about how you see AI and Gen AI impacting your activities generally?
Yes, and AI is something we think about every day, all day. And Visa's actually got a lot of experience with artificial intelligence, particularly from a fraud fighting perspective. So we introduced the first AI models in payments over 30 years ago to really help make sure that, when you use your card or your payment credential, it's you making that payment. And we can tell the good transactions from the bad transactions. So a lot of fraud fighting ability comes from the use of AI. And just to put a number to it, last year alone, we helped prevent $40 billion US in potential fraud through the use of AI applications. So the world that we see ahead is really going to be increasingly relied upon AI to protect and prevent fraud and combat cyber attacks. So that'd be one thing. But as you all, I'm sure, have experienced, AI is becoming an increasingly important part of our daily lives, and how we shop, how we engage in commerce is really going to be reflective of AI. And soon you'll be able to have your own agent who's shopping for you. And the world in that looks a little scary, because how do you have the controls? How do you ensure that what they're purchasing on your behalf is in fact what you want? So Visa just last month, in fact, launched something called Visa Intelligent Commerce, where we're partnering with the leading AI companies around the world to determine the frameworks for how commerce takes place in an AI-generated environment. And that means how you use your payment credentials, what controls you put on it. So you could say, for instance, I would want to approve, transactions up to a certain amount, or I want to make sure these transactions are very specific. And so to create the trust around commerce. And that's where Visa as a payment network really comes into play, because as much as we're in the payments business, we're very much in the trust business, so that when you use your Visa credential, you have confidence that it's going to be secure, you can make the payment, and you have confidence that it'll go through.
Trust, the greatest currency, I guess, in digital markets, digital financial markets in particular. In my introduction, I mentioned the fact that further digitalizing the economy was obviously a vector of growth. But there's another very important aspect of growth, and it's social growth, actually, that you alluded to. You talked about inclusive financial markets and digitalization. That's a very important point indeed. So could you tell us more about that and the benefits of financial inclusion, especially for the region here in Kazakhstan and beyond?
Yes. Thank you. And Visa is all about uplifting everyone everywhere. It's part of our mission as a company. And we're only as successful as our ability to serve all consumers wherever they may be, in whatever country they may be. And so financial inclusion is just a core part of our company's history, going back to the very founding of Visa in 1958. And that's important too in emerging economies and growing economies, because you want to make sure that everyone has equal access to digital payments. And just to maybe give you a contrast, I referenced before, in Kazakhstan, the vast majority of individuals have access to a bank account. That's not true everywhere in the world. If you think about the global trends, over nearly 1.4 billion people on the planet don't have access to digital payments, don't have access to financial accounts, don't have access to the same technology. And so Visa is working to change that. We're working with partners, and this isn't something that we're just doing on our own. It's something we do in partnership with governments, with financial institutions, with fintech partners, to make sure that the digital payment ecosystem is inclusive and has access. And so we spend a lot of time on financial education programs, supporting entrepreneurs, helping to do curriculum to make sure people are comfortable when they do have access to digital payments, and making sure, of course, that there's the security, because once you start, and if you lose that trust, you're just simply not going to go back. And so from the very day one, we want to make sure that this system is as secure as it can be. So all these things go together to make sure that there's a really robust, vibrant ecosystem that is inclusive, that encourages adoption of digital and financial services.
And still on the topic of financial inclusion and empowerment, we heard a lot this morning around women's empowerment in the remarks by some of our very distinguished guests. And it's very much a theme as well at Visa. You've got this fantastic global initiative. It's called She's Next, that you launched a couple of years ago, I believe. And it's all about supporting women who want to launch their own business. I'm seeing a lot of smiles here across the room from the ladies who know what I'm talking about here. It's getting that extra push, that extra support as a female entrepreneur to go out there and maybe borrow if you have to, and have that digital payment support. So tell us more about the initiative, and tell us more about the impact here, because I believe it's been very, very successful here in Kazakhstan.
Yes, indeed. And so maybe let me just offer a couple of observations, and I'll come back to Kazakhstan specifically and the work we've done here, because it's a real success story. But maybe just stepping back, if you think about the entrepreneurship around the world, most new businesses today are started by female entrepreneurs, which is wonderful. Second thing that's a reality is that most female entrepreneurs lack access to capital, lack access to the skills and tools they need to succeed as they're looking to start their business. And so as a result of that, Visa launched a global program called She's Next, which is really focused on empowering entrepreneurs to help them succeed as they start a new business, as they expand a business, to give them access to expertise that really helps them, grow and be successful. And so She's Next really is both, think a combination of Shark Tank, pitching opportunity, and giving support on the ground to make sure that as female entrepreneurs are building their business, they have the tools that they need to build their strategies confidently, to access the power of digital solutions and payments so they can support their business, to know how they think about their investment planning and needs over time. And so just to bring that back to the region and Kazakhstan specifically, so we launched a program a couple of years ago, about 4 years ago, and since we've launched, nearly 26,000 individual female entrepreneurs have gone through the program. We expanded it regionally, so we've been in 8 different cities across the country. And what's really amazing about it is we opened this up to applicants. Last year alone, we had, I think, over 16,000 applicants to participate. And we'll take them through a curated program to help support them, help give them knowledge, and then we'll take their ideas and have them do a pitch about the success of their program, and then there's a panel of judges that will weigh in and offer them advice and then ultimately award a winner. We've partnered with Halak Bank here in Kazakhstan, who will provide access to capital for the female entrepreneurs. Visa contributes access to capital as well. And we've done this in partnership with the Ministry of the National Economy and also with the Association of Women Entrepreneurs in Kazakhstan. And so we're trying to create a community to support female entrepreneurs and help them succeed in whatever ideas that they have. And it's amazing to see the confidence flourish with the winners and even all those who participate in the program, because what you see is they take away from that, they then share with their friends and colleagues. And so there's a multiplier effect of the programs that we're doing to help them succeed, in Kazakhstan and of course beyond.
Well, that's very inspiring, because it's not just about digital payments, is it? Or payments overall. It's about creating that ecosystem that's very supportive environment for women and other entrepreneurs, let's face it, to thrive and do very well. Thank you very much for sharing that with us. I just wanted to go back to the topic of innovation. We've mentioned AI, of course. So can you tell me more about what technologies or maybe regulations, what could be an enabler here in Kazakhstan in particular, and very pivotal to reach the, already great digital payment rate from 85% to 100%?
In payments and in digital, it's always a constant race to sort of continue to stay ahead, right, and introduce the newest innovations, the newest technologies, the newest solutions. And in doing it, what you want to create is an environment that encourages investment, encourages, responsible risk-taking, and that's in partnership with government to create the sandboxes that allow you to test and learn, to create programs and policies where, there is good partnership and collaboration, and certainly in the region, we see that a lot, whether we're talking Kazakhstan, whether we're talking Uzbekistan or other parts of Central Asia. But it's important as you think about things like digital public infrastructure, where there's a vested interest for the government to really promote, the public interest. But making sure as they do that, it's for the public interest, and you allow for the participation and support of the private sector. Because when you have that ingredient, it's a massive unlock and accelerant. Because if it's just government-led, they're only going to be so successful. If it's just private sector led, again, it's limited to those involved. But when you bring that together for true private sector collaboration, you see this amazing unlock, this amazing potential created, and it creates an accelerant of how you then transform the digital economy. And I think as you're looking at all the different data points in Kazakhstan in particular, we really cite that as a success story. So we reflect a lot on governments and their transformation around the world. And you hear a lot, for instance, around India and Brazil, which are very prominent in terms of the digital capabilities that they've led. Many of those are actually led by government. And Kazakhstan has been a really terrific partnership because you see the fintechs and banks flourishing because they have access to the government tools. So I think it's a combination of these things which allow a good innovative environment, good regulation that evolves to make sure that's staying current. Because unfortunately with regulation, it often looks backwards just by nature of what it is. And then creating really good consumer experiences where consumers have the choice to determine what products, services, and solutions that they want. And so all those, when those come together, you see the best of innovation, the best of digital transformation. And then just one last point is related to just the government solutions themselves. Government is a technology provider. Governments provide so many services to consumers and constituents. We want to make sure that stays best in class too. So all these things come together to really provide best in class digital experiences.
Thank you, Robert. You have worked very closely with the government here indeed, and the government of Kazakhstan has been a leader in building digital public infrastructure, DPI, That's the acronym for it. So can you tell us more about the governance principles that policymakers should consider when developing DPI? Because we've explained here that Kazakhstan does serve as a great case study for the rest of the region and beyond.
Yes. Yeah, and I think the elements that stand out here, I mentioned digital ID before, but that's really a fundamental element of this because, having the right digital credential allows you then to have access. Again, it builds the trust and security that you have. So that's a fundamental piece. As you think about driving internet availability, policies that promote that, because ultimately digital public infrastructure, is incumbent upon having good access to connectivity, mobile phone access, and in Kazakhstan, most individuals over the age of 15, 90% have a mobile phone, which they can easily connect, so that's important. And I think also the partnership directly with government is really essential because, for instance, here in Kazakhstan, we work closely with the National Bank into making sure that the protocols protections are in place for consumers as they take this leap into the digital world. And that's allowed them to be successful. And so as you look across all the different metrics in Kazakhstan, whether it's the number of digital transactions, which is very high, the number of people who have access to digital telephones, high, digital ID is very high. So all those become really important. We actually worked with a leading international think tank to do a comparison of how Kazakhstan compares to the rest of the world with respect to digital ID. And they're actually quite advanced. Even relative to places like India or Brazil, the percentage of digital penetration is much higher. So we think there's a lot of lessons to be gained across the region and around the world from Kazakhstan.
Thank you very much. Before we move on to closing thoughts, I was wondering if anyone in the audience had questions for our guest, if you're happy to address questions from the room. Robert?
Sure.
Any questions from the room? Yes, we have a question here.
Yes, I'm representing a Society of Women in Business, and we do annual forum during the last 10 years. And I would like to thank Visa because they support a lot our women empowerment initiatives, and we're working closely on many projects, including education. And thank you for these opportunities, for Inspire, for helping us develop together with Visa. Please come to our forum, exchange in February. Christina, the people will support. Yes, he's a great speaker.
Thank you very much.
That's fantastic.
I would just say,
thank you so much.
It's a wonderful example of the power of the Visa network to really, work with constituencies, work with female entrepreneurs and leaders like you. So thank you for the partnership. We're grateful for it.
And an invitation, of course.
An invitation, yes, indeed.
Fantastic. Any more questions from the room? So, given that this session was titled The Future of Payments in Central Asia and Beyond, I'm going to ask you maybe to conclude this session to project ourselves forward 5, 10 years down the line. What do you expect the market, the digital payment market here to look like?
Well, first of all, I think we're
and
just
what are your plans, of course?
We're just getting started, and I think that's the exciting part, right? The amount of transformation that has occurred here in a short time is really remarkable. But in the payment space broadly, there's just an acceleration happening. So what the future looks like even 3 and 5 years from now is going to be fundamentally different, right? How you pay, the credentials by which you use to pay, the role of AI that we talked about, the role of security, the role of really, being consumer-driven, consumer-specific in terms of how you interact, how you pay, putting the controls squarely in the hands of the individual in terms of what you spend, when you spend, how you spend. I think all those things are going to be really important. And frankly, as we look ahead, the world of digital assets, digital currency, all those become even more critical because that becomes, right now, I'm sure some of you use crypto on occasion, some of you maybe not at all. In the future, it's going to be very much a commonplace part of how payments work. And so we see the future as being not only very exciting, but also the role that we can play in contributing to the continued transformation is going to be ever more critical.
Exciting plans ahead. Thank you so much, Robert. Robert Thompson, who is Senior Vice President, Global Head of Government Engagement at VIDA. Thank you so much for being with us this afternoon. Thank you. And thanks to the audience as well for your attention and great points and questions. Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome. I'm Charlotte Kahn. I am delighted to welcome you all to this one-on-one conversation at the Astana International Forum, a platform designed to connect minds and shape the future. And it's very topical for our guest, Professor William Shum, who's himself a connector in every sense. So thank you so much for joining us, Professor Shum. You are from Hong Kong, a mega city that is a bridge between East and West, but it's also a mega city that is a regional hub. Let's talk about your experience now. You are a multi-entrepreneur who champions global cooperation, innovation and youth empowerment as chairman of the CPPCC Youth Association of Hong Kong, a pioneer in retail and luxury, as well as AI. You are the founder of Memorigin watches. And as President Tokayev mentioned in his opening speech this morning, youth empowerment is important for inclusion, but economic empowerment as well, of course, for economic growth. So that's what we're going to discuss here this afternoon. We'll also discuss Hong Kong's evolving role in this very uncertain world, as well as the importance of creating very innovative ecosystems. So, Professor Shum, we are meeting in Astana, a city positioned as a Eurasian crossroads. And like I mentioned in my introduction, Hong Kong, in a very similar way, has long served as this bridge between East and West and within the region. So how do you see the role of Hong Kong evolve in this very strategic competition and regional integration context? And how much can the megacity serve as a gateway for urban and broader regional opportunities?
Thank you so much, and it is my big honor to have a chance to do sharing with all of you, and thank you so much, Charlotte, because you always give me a very good inspiration, and during the trip coming here, I really learn a lot and I really enjoy a lot in the forum. So first of all, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is William, and I'm a young entrepreneur from Hong Kong. My main business is in the watch business, and since last year, I also tried to involve in the AI business to do some of the different applied AI solution. And at the same time, I'm the chairman of the CPPCC Youth Association. So all this because of the Hong Kong very unique character of the merge of East and West. I was born in Hong Kong, and I grew up in Hong Kong and study over there, and then I have a chance to study overseas for a couple of years. When I come back, I also have different opportunities to travel to different GBA cities in the Guangdong, different wonderful areas. And at the same time, I also have a chance to travel to different provinces and cities in China. So it really gives me a lot of the opportunities to how to exploit different advantage from Hong Kong, this very unique background. But first of all, I would like to show my very strong passion and love to Astana. It's the first time I come here, but I really love this city a lot, and I really love this forum a lot. And Astana, as I study from some of the research that I try to search online, is a very beautiful city. It's the capital of Astana, and also, and it is the really important geographic location in the Eurasia. So it really is inspired me a lot. But for Hong Kong, besides its very unique geographic location, it also has its very unique historic development. Because it once was the colonial rule of Britain, and after 1997, it returns to motherland, China, and we have the one country, two system. This wonderful system actually embarks a lot of different crossover with the merge of East and West in Hong Kong. And then for me, when I study in Hong Kong, my family background is more like a very strong traditional Chinese family. So when I grow up in Hong Kong, I learned a lot about different Chinese history, different Oriental art, all this. But when I study in Hong Kong local school, I have a chance to learn more about different Western culture, and I have a chance to study in US for a couple of years. Then I can broaden my horizons. And after my master degree in Cornell, because during that time it was the financial crisis, I studied my Cornell master from 2007 to 2009. During that time, it was so difficult to find a job, even I studied at Ivy League school. And then for my background, because my family has invested in watch movement in Hangzhou for like a long period of time. And then when I came back to Hong Kong, and then I tried to think of why not, I start to create a Hong Kong Tourbillon brand. Because for a Hong Kong Tourbillon brand, I can really utilize the unique of the Hong Kong historic background with the merge of East and West. So that's why I try to, first of all, I try to find some very unique design from my family collection, because my father loved to collect different type of the antiques, the wood carving antiques, for like many years. So I will try to use this of the design to put on the watch, to do different types of the crossover. At the same time, I have a really good opportunity in Hong Kong to try to find different partners from some of the wonderful international IP. For example, I cooperate with Warner Brothers, I cooperate with Disney for the Avengers Tourbillon series, Star Wars Tourbillon series. So all this, I would like to use my little entrepreneurship case study example to show that Hong Kong actually, although Hong Kong is a very, very competitive city with a very, very energetic city. But at the same time, actually, it has a lot of opportunities with the merge of East and West. And especially, it's the window and a very important role with the super collector and also super value-added facilitator to the world. And I think it's a very, very unique character. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing some of Hong Kong's unique traits. You've mentioned this very diverse heritage and history. Of course, that's very important. Its unique geographical location, the fact that it is a bridge between East and West, just like Kazakhstan and other places in Central Asia, by the way. Yeah. And the fact as well that it's also a bridge between old and new. You used the word tradition. Tradition is obviously very important in Hong Kong still, but it's also this great modernity. So let's talk about that, about the youth in Hong Kong. And let's look forward here, because I know you've done a lot of work, of course, around youth empowerment. So tell us more about how you go about it and what's essential to create, like I mentioned earlier, those very innovative ecosystems for youth to thrive, create businesses. What skills, what mindsets, policies, what framework, environment does youth need to thrive in Hong Kong today?
Actually, for Hong Kong young generation, I think they have a lot that can really learn from Kazakhstan. Because as I learned from Kazakhstan and Astana, actually for the young population, it consists of very majority of the percentage in the city. So I can tell every path, and wherever I go for like a short period of time of sightseeing, I can tell it is really amazing for a lot of different creative architects and also different creative ideas from the young power. And actually for Hong Kong, I can tell the young generation, they are all very creative and they all have the dreams. And because today I can come to do the sharing mainly because I'm the chairman of the CPPCC Youth Association. So I would like to share a little bit more about this association. This association, although it may not has a long history, it has a history of around 11 years, but it already has been one of the top 3 most influential young association in Hong Kong. We have more than 2,400 members with a lot of the, maybe I keep sharing about CPPCC, actually is one of the very important governor role in China for doing different types of the policy sharing and also some of the strategic sharing to different provinces and cities in China. So for this CPPCC Youth Association, it is like the youth association of the CPPCC Provincial Association. And we have a lot of members that they have a chance to be a very young CPPCC member in different province and city of China. And they also are the second generation of the CPPCC members in China. So that's why they have a quite strong horizon, and when they were small, they already had a lot of chance to travel to different cities in China and have a chance to enjoy the education in Hong Kong, to go overseas to study. So that's why this association actually has a big diverse of different young elites, and they all have their dreams and they want to dedicate to their motherland and also to Hong Kong. So that's why we are very united, and we try the best to have different activities. We have more than 13 different youth committee, and then for example, we have the new member committee. Whenever we have some new member, we will have different activities to welcome them, to let them involve in our association. We also have different, like a professional committee, because we want to attract more and more professional from Hong Kong to join our association. And also we have the for example, some of the profound Chinese study committee to learn about the different Chinese policy, to support the Hong Kong government different policy. So all this committee actually is quite energetic, and they have a lot to dedicate. So that's why this association gives me a chance to come here and to share about the young people's dream and their occupation and their pursuit in Hong Kong. So for us, we hope to give them, first of all, the hope is very important, because we very care about the grassroots of the Hong Kong, because we don't want to let poverty to limit the young people's dream. But of course, for Hong Kong, actually, it's a quite developed city. The average GDP is one of the highest in the cities in the world. But still, of course, whenever there's a society, they always have poor and rich people, right? So we hope to ensure we always care for the foundation. We always care for the leading, but to pursue them and to let them have the dreams coming true. And at the same time, we also, because today's topic is very important, is empower. How to empower their spiritual mindset, how to empower their execution level to pursue their dream. So it's also very important. So we really care about how their soul, their heart, how they think of their spiritual, their philosophies, to maintain their work-life balance. So all these are some of the examples we work a lot to support the young generation.
Yeah, so interestingly, my question was geared towards skills and maybe very concrete initiatives. And you're telling us about creating the right environment for the right mindset development. It's interesting. And through the CPPCC Youth Association, they have access to that network. But most of all, they have access to support psychologically to other people who have gone down the route of entrepreneurship and who can tell them that they can do it, they can follow that route, follow their dreams. So there's that psychological support. That's fantastic. But could you share maybe some initiatives with us? Do you have creativity hubs, let's say, or spaces where people can explore, innovation hubs, etc.?
Yeah, because for me, I have another role in Hong Kong, because I also involved as a speaker in different universities in Hong Kong. First of all, I share about my entrepreneurship, because when I start my own business, I really appreciate Hong Kong and also the GBA cities to give me a good foundation. Because as I share with you, Hong Kong has two roles as the super connector and also the super value added facilitator. So one of the important organization actually is the HKTDC, Hong Kong Trade Development Council. And when I start my entrepreneurship every year, actually up till now, I also had my brand's exhibition in the watch fair in Hong Kong. Actually, it is quite one of the largest in the world, and it attracts a lot of different distributor and dealer. And from 15 years ago, when my booth is only very tiny, just a very small booth in the watch fair, and then I also feel a little bit of nervous. I'm not so sure what is my brand's future. But year by year, I met my biggest partner. Actually, my biggest market is in Japan. We have different countries distributorship. So I share my entrepreneurship from very difficult, the first step, but because of I try the best to utilizing the Hong Kong, the unique the platform, the windows to the world. Then step by step, I have different opportunity. And I do a lot of crossover IP. When I share this concept to the school, and then a lot of the students actually get inspired. And they really begins to dare to think more about their dreams. I think for young generation, willing to try the best to think more about their dreams is very important. I always share to my students, because up till now, because I shared like hundreds of talks, either in English, Chinese, Mandarin, or Cantonese. Actually, I think it's also one of the advantage in Hong Kong, because in Hong Kong, the merger of East and West, the most popular language, all Hong Kong people and all Hong Kong young generation have a chance to learn since they study in school, Mandarin, Cantonese, English. So, because when I share a lot, since last year I began to be the professor in different university and also council member in different university. And the young generation always, after listening to my speech, they're willing to jump out of their comfort zone and willing to not only study but willing to travel, to do more of different due diligence in different cities, even in different countries. So it's really encouraging for me to witness all this achievement to the students. And I think for the young power, I always share to the young people, the motto is that whenever the dream is beneficial to themselves. Of course, we love every of our hobby, but not only beneficial to ourselves, we need to help also beneficial to the other party and also beneficial to the society. As long as keep these three big directions, then they should pursue their dream, no matter the dreams seems so far away from them at this moment. Yeah.
Okay, so sharing inspiring stories and real life examples and success stories. Interesting.
Yeah,
there is a lot of focus on this forum on new technologies and AI in particular. We've talked about cryptocurrencies as well, of course, and technology as a tool for empowerment. And you are yourself working on several very exciting projects linked to AI. So I was wondering if you could expand on this a little bit, and which sectors do you think, or maybe particular activities, will be most disrupted by AI in a good and a bad way, of course?
Yeah, so it is also one of the key maybe case study I would like to share with the young generation is that trying to keep jumping out of the comfort zone is very important. I remember 15 years ago when I tried to work on my entrepreneurship, you know that Hong Kong is a financial hub, all right? Of course, in the past, it is the 4 Asian tigers, and then step by step, it is the very important 3 top finance center alongside with New York and London. And then after the successful support from our motherland and the one country, two system, it already becomes the 8 important centers, including not only finance, but also including the information and technology, artistic and creative industry, etc. So Hong Kong actually has a very different, diverse, and very strong character to support different young people to pursue their dream. But first of all, from our perspective, it is the young people that willing to jump out of the comfort zone is really important. So for me, I remember 15 years ago, I tried to jump out of the comfort zone. Everyone thinking that this traditional watch industry, whenever people think of the watch brand, of course, I have utmost respect to all the top watch brands because they are forever my teacher. But at the same time, I always think that why not? I also have enough knowledge, and I also think that actually Hong Kong has this kind of a unique historic development. Why not do like a beautiful Hong Kong brand? So this is all I jump out of the comfort zone, and from very beginning, maybe a lot of the retail store things, it may be a doubt, and step by step, we have more than like 300 to 500 different point of sales. And then since last year, I already got inspired by actually from you, and like for example, in the morning, I have a chance and honor to learn from presidents and different important governors sharing about the importance of the AI and information and technology development. It's also from our central government of China, the motherland, and also Hong Kong government government give us a very strong tendency of the direction. So the first, when I try to learn from AI, I feel it's like too far away from me because I'm working in the traditional industry. But when I listen to the AI, I find out that actually it really applied to different daily activities. For example, I have a factory. For using AI, it helps a lot to improve and increase the profit, reduce the cost, and also improve the safety standard. So step by step, I have my own company with the founding president. He is the majority shareholder, Carson Choi, and we have our own company. And recently, we have a good project to support the Hong Kong government by doing a very good dispersal system, AI system, to help Kai Tak Sports Center for all the audience. After watching the show, they can have a very clear AI instruction, which of the routes with the different crowded area with different color indication to show them to disperse in a very safety and efficient way, and also with a very clear transportation system to indicate to them. Yeah.
That's very interesting. I want to go back to the brand, luxury brand
Sure.
you founded, Memorigin.
Sure.
It's a convergence of memorial and original, tradition and innovation,
Yes.
yet again.
Yeah.
A brand clearly rooted in craftsmanship and heritage. And of course, the first tourbillon watch brand in Asia. But as we know, China, Hong Kong, is very hungry for luxury, but the luxury market somehow has shown signs maybe of maturity recently. So what's your outlook for the luxury industry? And how do you see it evolve in this world of abundance and also of shifting values?
For luxury brand, this is a wonderful question because we need to keep thinking of the brand position, because I found out that actually for the whole retail industry, for the branding industry, actually it changed so rapidly. So that's why we keep learning to keep fighting on to have different elements. So for my Hong Kong brand, the Memorigin is the combination of memorial and original. First of all, we hope the design to be very unique, and also for the memorial, we hope that for all the customers who wear our watches, it not only remember to read the time, to measure the time, but also actually it helps them to remember to enjoy the unique and the beautiful moment of their lives. So by doing that, I begin to think of, actually I understand that nowadays for the luxury items, it may not be the main consumption target for a lot of the customers, because you know that the whole global, by statistics, maybe the whole global economy is a little bit growing in a slower rate, and people may think of necessities more than luxury items first. And then for luxury items, so why we can attract them to buy our products? I think story is very important. So that's why in here I would like to share about the Hong Kong Young Power, and also I learned a lot actually from Astana International Forum as well. The Young Power is that they know how to do different types of crossover. This kind of crossover actually I think is very important, because for the future of the retail industry, it's more in the very important way of doing custom-made products for the customers. It's more like in the past, we may think that, okay, we have a very unique design. The customer will come and buy from us. But in the future, actually nowadays, we need to think of, okay, maybe the audience sitting opposite to me, what they like, what you like the most. Then I need to think of a very unique design to attract you. So it is our brands to do this kind of the custom made. Yeah.
Professor Sham, we need to wrap up, unfortunately.
Oh, sure.
Do we have any questions from the room before we do so? Any questions from the room? If not, I have a last question for you.
Sure.
And hopefully a very short answer from you.
Sure.
The forum's theme is connecting minds, shaping the future. So in one sentence, I was wondering if you could tell us how you want to shape the future, and what do you want to help build for this world?
For me, for one sentence to conclude, I think cultivating young people is shaping the future, because it is what I learned from the forum, and also I learned from my motherland, China, because when young people thrive, the nation thrives. When young people progress, the future will progress. So that's why I think young people is the key factor for our society, and we will try the best as HKCPPCC Youth Association. We will always try the best to support the youth development in the society.
Invest in youth, invest in the future, of course.
Yeah.
It's that simple. Thank you so much, Professor Shum, for your great thoughts.
Thank you for your time and
for sharing your journey with us. Very, very inspiring journey indeed. Many thanks to you and many thanks to the audience, of course.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.